I'll hand things over to our first presenter, James Schweitzer.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ed. Good morning, everyone. My name is James. We're here to talk about SOC Prime. First, I want to take a moment to talk about the agenda. We'll introduce ourselves, then we'll go over some specifics of what Corelight can do to assist with this, as well as SOC Prime, some great Sigma detections. We've got a lot of technical detail that Nate's going to provide pretty soon. And then we'll open it up and provide you opportunities to say, these are open source testing capabilities that exist. So you're not purely dependent on someone else. There's a lot that you can do out there. With that, I'll start with the introduction. I'll introduce myself. My name is James Schweitzer. I've been with Corelight for 2.5 years. I lead the East and Federal SEs, and prior to that, I spent 11 years with the MITRE Corporation, supporting various government agencies in the Security Center. Nate, to hand it to you.
Yep, thanks, James. I didn't know that's how you actually pronounce your last name. I've known you, for 5 or 6 years, so after the call, I have to get that on recording again. But yeah, I'm Nate Guagenti, probably better known as Neutron on Twitter, but spent a lot of time working in DoD and then some healthcare, and then last 2 years, living a good life in the private sector. Yeah, contributor to HELC, OSIM, the schema. HELC is, threat hunting, like elk stack, different add-ons, and then Sigma, just wear multiple hats, mostly related around threat research and data engineering, I guess is the best way to describe myself.
Excellent. Thanks, Nate. It's going to be a great broadcast. And Andre?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for having me today. So yeah, if you think your last name is hard to pronounce, try mine. Yeah, my name is Andre Bezverki. I'm originally from Ukraine, as more known as a founder and CEO of SOC Prime company. So mostly focused on bringing detection as a code to the masses and taking Sigma big with our threat detection marketplace. So yeah, glad to be with you today. I mean, a few words about myself. I'm officially in information security since 2007. Learned to work with probably 15 different SIM technologies, and then EDRs. And these days, we really helping to drive Sigma to automate deployment of the rules and again drive the open source detections. So I'll be speaking briefly today, mostly about the latest US CERT alert and some Corelight and content to detect the APT41 and other Chinese actors attacks. A little bit of zero logon, but mostly here to be with you guys and maybe to comment on a few of your questions.
Excellent. Thanks, Andre. So with that, I'll go ahead and start us off talking about Corelight. For folks who may not be familiar, Corelight is the enterprise implementation of Zeek. Zeek is a framework that was invented by Vern Paxson almost 20 years ago. Vern is one of the 3 co-founders of Corelight. The other 2 co-founders had been leading the open source project for over a decade. And what they decided and recognized is they have a tradecraft, and they really wanted to do something to make it easier for folks to be able to monitor networks. So they wouldn't spend time building the sensor, they'd be able to concentrate in the data. So Corelight really is a tradecraft in enriching data. The 2 that I'll mention briefly to talk about are what we call our encrypted traffic collection. Recognizing that more and more traffic on the internet is encrypted, Corelight is saying this is still data that is readily available even though traffic is encrypted, whether it's an SSH connection or a TLS connection to go through. For example, we've looked through and can tell if you have an SSH connection, is that SSH connection interactive, or is it being used to upload or download files? Making it easier to assess if somebody is trying to abuse what's otherwise, a trusted vehicle in order to maintain and communicate with your network infrastructure. Another item you'll see is an integration with Suricata. And you may look at that and say, well, there have been plenty of folks that have deployed solutions that have Suricata with Zeek. And that's true. The difference in this case is Corelight has actually integrated the 2. So what Corelight has done is we've combined contents from the Eve log with the material from our connections log to create one. And by doing that, we're really making it very simple, or it's not simple, easier for analysts to, when they discover an alert, to quickly go get the related data, whether you're doing that through your dashboard, pivoting within your SIM, or if you have orchestration built into your platform. But if you're unfamiliar really with Zeek, think of us similar to Snort to SourceFire and Nessus to Tenable. There are things that you can do in the open source, but the commercial instantiation wants to make it easier. And I like to have that example to power tools. I worked for a carpenter through college, and when you have a power tool, it's amazing the things that you can do, how you can do things faster and easier, but there are downsides. If you're not careful, it's very easy with a nail gun that you could shoot through your hand, through your finger. So it's like any tool. If you know how to use it and use it properly, it can be incredibly effective and make your job easier. And that's really what Corelight wants to focus is. We want to be sure that we're making things easier for our customers to monitor traffic, get that traffic where it needs to be. So I'll give you 1 second to kind of read this. It's a pretty dense statement, but it really summarizes what Corelight is. We're a data-centric solution. And with that, we want to be sure that we enhance folks that deploy automation tools. We do that because we transform the information into logs and we can extract files. We really support an existing ecosystem within your SOC. With this, we really provide insights to multiple personnel, whether they're threat hunters or incident responders, and we'll give you some specific examples of that, as we move through and talk about how we partner with SOC Prime. When you look, I'm sure many people on the call are going to say, I already have a lot of security data. I have security tools that generate logs. I have host data coming in, it goes into a SIM, and I have threat intel. What exactly can you offer me, Corelight? Network data, what makes network data, valuable? And we look and say, really, it's understanding all aspects of your environment. So many folks or many organizations that may have network traffic today, it's sampled or it's incomplete. And really that doesn't paint a very good picture. It's kind of trying to answer a question where you only hear the first kind of initial statement and the closing remark. You don't hear anything in the middle for context. It makes it very difficult to understand what's going on and how can you react appropriately. So Corelight takes that and says, we're going to give you comprehensive evidence on any segment. And the way we do that is through generating logs. Now, sorry, the graphic is a little smaller than I wanted it to be, but what we wanted to demonstrate with this is anything that traverses the network generates a log, whether it's a Microsoft DCERPC coming through for remote procedure call, Kerberos, or Modbus if you're in an ICS environment. But the challenge you have is you could say, well, I already have some of those logs, but were those logs designed for incident responders? Were they designed for security personnel? What Corelight has done, and really Zeke and Vern, when he invented this, is they transform the traffic and they transform it to provide context. Everything centers around the connection log. So if you're familiar with NetFlow, the connection log is very similar to that, but has a lot of additional content. The con log summarizes a connection between two endpoints, and it has, information, source, dest, IP address, ports, the duration, but it also has a couple of interesting items. One is the history field. So that's a summary of the TCP control flags. So you have freedom to really look to see if I have a TCP window size of 0, do I have a SYN followed by a reset where somebody's trying to do reconnaissance on my network, or maybe I have a daemon that's died. All of that's available in the con, but that only tells part of the story. When we look, we parse the protocols to tell you exactly what it is, and we don't look on the port. We actually have dynamic protocol detection to go through and look at it and say, this is a DNS session, this is the DNS information. Similarly, you see HTTP and FTP. Each one of those is its own independent log, and there'll be a corresponding connections log. What we continue to do to make it easier is if there are files that are exchanged across